These are the same Republicans that have ousted their speaker, who now has resigned. These are the same Republicans that can barely keep the government open. These are the same Republicans that haven't really passed any bills all session long. But when you have idiots, and I am intentionally calling her an idiot, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wants to flash nude pictures, I wouldn't take these people seriously, right?
In the aftermath of last week's TMZ-style Republican-led congressional hearing about Hunter Biden of all people, freshman Democratic superstar Jasmine Crockett has been torching the GOP in the media about their hypocrisy, their stupidity, and their general ineffectiveness. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert buttons before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, we have several clips with respect to this video, but before we look at any of them, I want to set the stage. One of the things I tried to do in 2023 that I want to continue to do this year, perhaps even more frequently, is draw attention, shine a spotlight on the class of freshman Democratic congresspeople, people like Jasmine Crockett, Dan Goldman, Jared Moskowitz, and Maxwell Frost, among others, right? Because one of the perceptions about the Democratic Party, and I think there is some truth to it, is that in some regards we have a bit of a weak bench, right? We don't have a particularly exciting bench. President Biden has been a very effective president, all things considered, certainly relative to other presidents. But the perception is he's not very exciting. So we need like fresh blood, young blood to carry the Democratic Party, hopefully into a much more progressive, fiery future. And Jasmine Crockett, to me, embodies that energy, perhaps better than anybody in Congress right now, or at least she's one of the top ones. And I want to play several clips which really embody that because she's so good at what she does, which is calling out the GOP for what they are. In this particular clip, she addresses the fact that, yeah, it makes sense how Hunter Biden didn't want to do a closed-door deposition with Republicans, and she kind of tells the Republicans about themselves.
And distinguish, but you know what? Listen, I just like to make things plain. And I think that I made it very plain yesterday as to why no one in their right mind in his position would want to come in behind closed doors and trust them to be the upstanding members that we're used to having in Congress. These are the same Republicans that have ousted their speaker, who now has resigned. These are the same Republicans that can barely keep the government open. These are the same Republicans that haven't really passed any bills all session long. Let me play.
So again, all of these things are true. You know, when the congressional hearing into Hunter Biden was occurring to potentially hold him in contempt of Congress, again, it was pointed out that Republicans talk a big game about transparency and openness, but the fact of the matter is that of their closed-door depositions, 14 of the 16 transcripts have still been hidden, right? And so they have clearly no interest in transparency. Kevin McCarthy, she was correct to point that out. It took forever to get him to be speaker. Then they kicked him out. Then he resigned, further shrinking their narrow majority. And now, as we've discussed in more recent videos, it looks like Mike Johnson, the current Republican Speaker of the House, may suffer Kevin McCarthy's fate because these Republicans are unable, they are incapable, it seems cognitively or emotionally, of containing themselves and conducting the business of state on behalf of the American people. And she talks about the government shutdown. We're 4 days away from a government shutdown unless Republicans can get their act together. So all of these were excellent points. With respect to certain Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jasmine Crockett gets even more blunt, but no less honest.
Do you want to see Hunter Biden testify, either in front of the cameras, behind closed doors? Would he make life easier on himself to just
To be perfectly honest, I don't really care. I'm going to be honest, because this is supposed to be about impeaching the president. But when you have idiots, and I am intentionally calling her an idiot, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wants to flash nude pictures, I wouldn't take these people seriously, right? Like, so are you wanting me behind closed doors because you want to dig into my personal sexual life? Does that have anything to do with the president of the United States and him being impeached? If we had serious people, then I probably would care, because I would say this is a serious body of people that are looking for something because they have something. But they have been investigating Hunter for years. It started under the Trump administration. If you had something, I promise you, they wouldn't have held back. And so it's a bunch of games. You know, what his lawyers think is best for him, then so be it. But to say that he's spitting in the face of Congress is just false. He has tried to present himself. He has tried to present himself under the parameters that were laid out by our chairman. And, you know, again, they just change their minds. They do what they want to do. They're just kind of blowing by the wind. So who knows?
Congresswoman, do you?
So again, all great points. I love the fact that she's like, she doesn't even pretend to really be interested in what's going on with Hunter Biden. And she has no reason to be. Hunter Biden, number one, is a private citizen. He has only ever been a private citizen. He did not work in the Obama administration. He did not work in his father's administration, which means he is a private citizen under extraordinary and unjustifiable scrutiny. He was investigated under the Trump. He was technically investigated under the Obama administration. The investigation, which is now ultimately charging him with federal crimes, began as a tax inquiry under President Obama. So he was investigated under Obama, then under Donald Trump, now under his own father. And this is just in the executive branch. In 2019 and 2020, he was investigated by Senate Republicans in Congress under Donald Trump. And now he's being investigated by House Republicans. When is enough? 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times. When do the fishing expeditions into Hunter Biden stop? That's the problem. The Republican Party has demonstrated zero limiting principle. They think they can they're entitled to comb through this private citizen's life in perpetuity, if that's what it takes, to hurt President Biden and the Democrats politically. That's insane. He doesn't deserve this level of scrutiny. So she's right to say, I'm honestly not interested in what this private citizen, in his testimony, because he's been investigated so many times. There have been no credible allegations of crimes that deserve the attention of Congress, right? It's not like a situation with conservative billionaires in the Supreme Court. They haven't proven anything with Hunter Biden and Joe Biden at this point. So what's the point? I love that she's just so unapologetic about it. But I'll also say, I'm going to play a clip of another freshman Democrat superstar, Jared Moskowitz, here, because it actually will tie into what Jasmine Crockett has to say about subpoenas and congressional subpoenas and the validity of congressional subpoenas. Just as a reminder, during last week's congressional hearing, Jasmine Crockett's colleague, Jared Moskowitz, offered to make this a bipartisan issue. He offered to vote to hold Hunter Biden in contempt, but on certain conditions.
Listen, I'll make this bipartisan. I'll vote for the Hunter contempt today. You can get my vote. You can get my vote. But I want you to show the American people that you're serious. Here is the subpoena to Representative Scott Perry, who did not comply. I'd like to enter this into the record. Here is the subpoena to Mark Meadows. I'd like to enter this into the record, who did not comply. Here is the subpoena to Jim Jordan, who did not comply with a lawful subpoena. I'd like to enter that into the record. Here is the subpoena to Mo Brooks, who did not comply. I'd like to enter that into the record. Here is the subpoena to Mr. Biggs, who did not comply. I'd like to enter that into the record. And here's the subpoena to Mr. McCarthy, who did not comply. I'd like to enter that into the record. There's an amendment coming to add some of those names into the contempt order. You vote to add those names and show the American people that we apply the law equally, not just when it's Democrats, right? It's a crime when it's Democrats, but when it's Trump and the Republicans, it's just fine. No, show that you're serious and that everyone is not above the law.
Right. So that's what Jared Moskowitz had to say. And again, it's relevant because there are Republicans who took the opposite position, who were like, actually, those subpoenas against Republicans don't count. And again, we'll get to Jasmine Crockett's final summation on this topic. But this is Tim Burchett, a Republican, who this is what he has to say in contrast to Moskowitz and Crockett.
I hear what you're saying, but let me ask you, it was the January 6th committee, and subpoenas were issued and subpoenas were defied. Congressman Jordan defied the subpoena. Congressman Perry. There were a number of members of the House Republican Conference. They just defied those subpoenas. Didn't they kind of make a subpoena sort of worthless?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's really a standing committee. Both sides knew what was up with that, Jim. That thing was rigged from the beginning. I mean, you had ABC help facilitate it one night so they could have their when they would give out all the information. I wouldn't doubt if I'd ever watch.
So Tim Burchett goes on to spin a wild conspiracy theory, and other Republicans have taken this position too, that the January 6th Select Committee, which issued subpoenas to Republican members of Congress, wasn't valid. Well, number one, they have no evidence of that. It was lawfully, the committee was lawfully created under the rules of the Democratic-led majority, right? They have no evidence. When the subpoenas were challenged in court, those subpoenas were upheld. So again, they're just saying, no, it doesn't count because we don't like it. In which case, again, I think Democrats should start doing that as well every time. No, we just just don't think this is legitimate, so we're not going to comply, and we'll fight it every step of the way, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. This is what Jasmine Crockett has to say about the double standard imposed by Republicans about congressional subpoenas.
That he showed up. I mean, we were having a markup about the fact that they're trying
Congresswoman Nancy Mace said she would like to see Hunter Biden behind bars.
Yeah, I'm sure she would. You know, listen, that's just so that they can campaign on that, right? Again, they continue to say that they don't have anything to campaign on. You know, if you want to see Hunter behind bars, you should want to see your colleagues, half of them that were voting to hold him in contempt, who still have subpoenas out. And here's the deal. As someone who has been an officer of the court, I am very respectful to court proceedings and court-like proceedings, which is what this is. You know, I think that we all should respect it. But once you have a group that just blatantly ignores it, then it tears down your ability to enforce it with another group. And that's when they claim about two-tier systems, that's when we see it actually playing out.
She's 100% correct. There is a two-tier system of justice, one for Republicans in which they're graded on a curve, and the other for Democrats as well. Or in the case here of Republican congresspeople being graded on a curve and allowed to defy, flagrantly, blatantly defy congressional subpoenas, but a private citizen like Hunter Biden should be held to a higher standard than public officers. Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, but that's textbook Republican logic, because they can't win, nor they can't win debates, they can't win arguments, they can't win these sorts of, you know, battles of ideas if they adhere to single standards. They would lose every single time. So they have to create and exacerbate double standards. But I love the energy that Jasmine Crockett brings to these things. I love the fact that she calls people like Marjorie Taylor Greene for exactly what they are. Idiots and hypocrites and losers, because it's precisely what elected Republicans are, particularly at the federal level in this country. And we need not mince our words. They certainly don't when they try to insult us all the time. And again, that's another asymmetry that we have to deal with. I love this energy. I want to see more of it. And I hope this defines the future of the Democratic Party. Let me know what you think in the comments.